Welcome to Congress in Context. I'm your host, and I am ready to dig in.
And I'm here to help make sense of it all. It is great to be back.
Today, we're setting our time machine to Friday, January 16th, 2026. Now, I want you to picture the floor of the House. Usually it's this chaotic scene, people mingling, speeches, gavels banging.
Pages running back and forth.
Exactly. But if you looked at the clock on that particular Friday, you might have blinked and, well, missed the whole session.
That's not even an exaggeration. The House met for exactly 3 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yeah. They banged the gavel at 3 p.m. sharp and adjourned at 3:03 p.m. And if you think that's fast, the Senate was even crowder.
Oh, how long did they last?
They met for, get this, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. That's barely enough time to check your watch.
From 8:31 and 21 seconds a.m. to 8:31 and 51 seconds a.m. I mean, it was literally a blip on the radar.
So to anyone just watching, a tourist in the gallery or whatever, it looks like a snow day in D.C. A quiet Friday, nobody's working, nothing is happening.
On the surface, absolutely. But this is exactly why we do this deep dive. Because there's this massive disconnect between that silent floor and the incredibly noisy paper trail that was generated that same day.
Right. The microphones were off. The cameras weren't catching any big speeches. But the legislative machinery, it was definitely churning.
Oh, it was. We have a stack of documents here, the Congressional Record, and it is just overflowing. We're talking about new legislation on everything from, how AI is used in your bank to protecting special operations forces.
It wasn't just bills. There's some really fascinating tributes tucked away in there. We found a commemoration of a historic drone delivery in Appalachia, a harrowing story about a POW escapee.
And even a tribute to a 100-year-old hardware store.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to ignore the empty podium. We're going to ignore the C-SPAN cameras. Instead, we are digging into the extensions of remarks and the committee reports.
Yeah, we want to find out what is actually happening when the lights are effectively off in the chamber.
Because so often, the written record tells you more about where the country is heading than the speeches do.
Totally. The speeches are for the cameras, the filings are for the law books.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll start with the legislation. Because even with a 3-minute session, there was a flurry of activity in what's called the Public Bills and Resolutions section.
Right. Just because they aren't debating doesn't mean they stop filing. Members were dropping bills into the hopper that cover some very specific and honestly some very anxious economic topics.
The first one that really jumped out at me is H.R. 7138. This was introduced by Representative Khanna from California. And looking at the text, it seems like he's taking aim at a topic that is driving, well, everyone crazy right now.
The housing market.
The housing market.
It's a huge issue, and this bill is fascinating because of who it targets. It's not looking at your neighbor flipping a house. It's targeting specified large investors who own single-family homes.
So we're talking about the big guys, the hedge funds, the private equity firms that buy up whole neighborhoods.
Exactly. The institutional landlords. And the goal of this legislation is basically twofold. First, it wants to disallow tax deductions for their expenses. So usually a business can write off maintenance, interest, that kind of thing. This goal says, no, not if you're a giant investor hoarding starter homes.
And I saw there's a tax penalty in there too, right?
Yep, an excise tax on their sales. Essentially, they're trying to make it financially painful for Wall Street to treat Main Street housing like it's just a stock portfolio.
It's addressing that whole financialization of housing concept we keep hearing about.
Precisely. Representative Khanna, along with co-sponsors like Representative Tlaib and Representative Frost, is signaling that, the tax code should favor the family trying to buy a house, not the corporation trying to add an asset class to their balance sheet. It's a very specific ideological stance on property.
And interestingly, on the flip side of that, we saw H.R. 7131 introduced by Representative Fitzgerald. This one deals with the exclusion of gain from sales of principal residences.
Right, this is the other side of the coin. So the first bill attacks the corporate buyer. This bill tweaks the rules for the individual seller. The exclusion of gain is that rule that says if you sell your house for a profit, you don't pay taxes on the first chunk of that money.
Usually around $250,000 or $500,000 if you're married.
Exactly. So seeing these two bills land on the same day, even a quiet Friday, it really paints a picture of a Congress that is, obsessed with housing policy right now.
It shows that housing is being fought on multiple fronts. One front is regulating the giants. The other is like tax relief for the little guy.
Right. Both sides are trying to unlock the market, but they're just pulling very different levers to do it.
Okay, moving from housing to the machinery of government itself. There was a bill introduced that. Well, Made me a little nervous just reading the title. H.R. 7137 from Representative Johnson of South Dakota.
Ah, yes. This is what we call a signal flare. The bill is designed to appropriate funds for federal employees and the armed forces specifically during a lapse in appropriations.
A lapse in appropriations. That's just polite D.C. speak for a government shutdown, isn't it?
It is. And here's why you should care. When you see a bill like this, specifically protecting pay for the military and federal workers during a shutdown, it tells you there's significant anxiety in the halls of Congress that the funding might just run out.
It's like buying collision insurance right before you drive onto a really icy road.
That's a great analogy. Representative Johnson is essentially trying to pre-pack the parachute. He knows the plane might stall. By filing this, he's trying to ensure that if the political fighting stops the budget, the soldiers and the workers still get their paychecks.
It's practical, but it's also, I don't know, ominous. It implies they really expect a crash.
It does. Now, staying in that government operations bucket, we had H.R. 7130 by Representative Downing. This one is looking to eliminate the Federal Insurance Office.
I have to admit, I didn't even know we had a federal insurance office. I assumed insurance was mostly a state thing.
It is, historically. But after the 2008 financial crisis, the feds wanted a way to monitor the industry for systemic risk, basically, to make sure a collapse in the insurance market wouldn't take down the whole economy.
Okay, that makes sense.
So Representative Downing's bill to eliminate it is a classic federalism argument. He's arguing that Washington shouldn't be looking over the shoulder of state regulators. It's a big push to shrink the administrative state.
Let's look outward now. Foreign affairs and defense were definitely on the menu this Friday. We saw H.R. 7146 from Representative Whitman of Virginia.
This is a critical piece regarding the Arms Export Control Act. Representative Whitman is pushing to expedite licensing for our allies to transfer military equipment to Taiwan.
Expedite is the key word there. We're talking about speed.
All about speed. The context here is, of course, the tension in the Pacific. We have a lot of allies who want to help Taiwan or just move equipment around to bolster defenses. But the U.S. bureaucracy for approving those weapons transfers is notoriously slow.
So lots of red tape.
Oh yeah, multi-agency reviews, all of it. So Whitman is basically saying, we don't have time for the paperwork. He's arguing that speed is a form of deterrence. If you can move the hardware faster, you make the adversary think twice.
So it's about modernizing our own bureaucracy to match the threat level.
Exactly. Recognizing that modern conflict moves way faster than traditional legislation.
And we also saw HRA's 1008 from Mrs. Ansari expressing support for the Iranian people protesting for a free and democratic Iran.
Which is a good reminder that Congress uses these resolutions to signal diplomatic stances. It's not a law that changes a tariff. It's a message. It's Congress officially stating, we see you and we support you. It's all about solidarity and international pressure.
I also noticed a package of bills from Representative Frost on gun safety. It wasn't just one bill. It was a trio, H.R. 7133, 7134, and 7135.
Right. This is a strategy of breaking a big problem into smaller, administrative pieces rather than trying to pass one giant omnibus bill.
So walk us through them.
Okay, so 7133 deals with merchant category codes. This is about how credit card companies classify gun stores. If you have a specific code for gun sellers, it's easier to track suspicious spikes in purchasing.
Like if someone suddenly buys 50 rifles on a Tuesday with a credit card.
Exactly. It creates a data trail. Then 7134 deals with destroying firearms, making sure that when a gun is supposed to be destroyed, it's actually destroyed, not sold for parts.
Okay.
And 71335 deals with licensing. So Representative Frost is trying to tighten the administrative side of gun ownership. It's less about banning guns and more about tightening the paperwork and the tracking around them.
Finally, before we leave legislation, we have to touch on technology. Representative Steele introduced HRA's 1007 about artificial intelligence.
Yes, specifically in financial services and housing. We're seeing more and more of this Congress trying to figure out the sense of the house on AI.
Because AI isn't just generating funny pictures anymore.
No, they're asking, how is an algorithm deciding who gets a mortgage?
Yeah.
How is a bot deciding who gets a rental application approved?
It's the black box problem.
Correct. If an AI denies you a house, can it explain why? Representative Steele is pushing for clarity there. It's the intersection of high-tech innovation and, frankly, basic civil rights. This is going to be a huge theme for the next decade.
It's amazing how much ground they covered in a session that lasted 3 minutes. But here is where it gets really interesting for me. We need to talk about the people.
The extensions of remarks.
Exactly. For those listening who don't speak Congress, this is the section where members can insert statements into the record that they didn't actually say out loud. And usually this is where you find the local flavor, the history, the stuff that really matters back home.
It's the heartbeat of the districts.
Yeah.
It connects all that abstract legislation we just talked about to real people.
So let's dive in. While not spoken on the floor, Representative H. Morgan Griffith of Virginia submitted a statement that actually blew my mind. He was recognizing the 10th anniversary of the first FAA-approved drone delivery in the U.S.
This is such a fascinating bit of tech history, and it happened in Wise County, Virginia.
I did not realize drone delivery had been around for a decade. I still feel like it's science fiction.
10 years. But here's the cool part. Representative Griffith highlighted that this wasn't, delivering a pizza or an Amazon package. It was delivering medical supplies to something called the Health Wagon.
The Health Wagon, that's such a great name.
It's a vital service. In Appalachia, the terrain is incredibly rugged. Getting pharmaceuticals to remote clinics can be a logistical nightmare.
Sure, I can imagine.
Griffith's statement details how they used this drone way back in 2015 to overcome the mountains.
So it wasn't just a tech demo, it was actually solving a rural healthcare inequality problem.
Exactly. It highlights the intersection of rural needs and cutting-edge aviation. It shows that sometimes the most important innovation happens where the roads are the worst, because that's where the need is greatest.
So Wise County was basically the Kitty Hawk of drone logistics. That is cool.
It really is.
Okay, next up, a story that feels like it should be a movie script. While not spoken on the floor, Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas submitted a tribute to Captain Isaac Camacho.
A powerful, powerful story. Captain Camacho was a Vietnam veteran. He was captured by Viet Cong forces back in 1963.
And he didn't just wait to be rescued.
No. He endured 20 months of captivity. Can you imagine that? Almost 2 years. And then he did something unprecedented. He became the first American service member to escape a Viet Cong POW camp.
The very first one. That is incredible resilience.
It defines it. But what I loved about Representative Gonzalez's tribute is what came after. He notes that after that whole ordeal and after his service, Camacho came home to El Paso.
And what did he do there?
He worked for the U.S. Postal Service.
Wow, that is such a contrast from a jungle POW camp to the quiet rhythm of delivering mail.
It's that quiet dignity, a true public servant. From fighting for his country to serving his neighbors day in and day out. It's just a reminder of the depth of character in our veterans.
We also had a recognition of a community staple that speaks to a different kind of endurance. Representative Eric Swalwell from California recognized Pete's Ace Hardware in Castro Valley.
You have to love these. This hardware store was founded in 1926. That's 100 years of business.
1926. So they survived the Great Depression, World War II, the dot-com bubble, the 2008 crash, the pandemic, everything.
And the rise of the big box stores. Representative Swalwell points out it was started by Hungarian immigrants, Peter and Mary Selmeski. Started as a hardware store and an auto spray painting business. Now it's a fourth-generation family business.
That's the classic American immigrant success story, and it connects back to what we were saying about the housing market earlier.
Oh, how so?
Well, we have bills fighting corporate investors taking over neighborhoods, and here you have a 100-year-old family business just holding the line. It shows the tension between the financialization of the economy and the actual people building things in it.
That's a great observation. The record shows both the threat and the resilience.
Speaking of World War II, there was a very somber and touching entry from Representative John R. Carter of Texas. He honored First Lieutenant Charles W. Woody McCook.
This one gives you closure, but man, it took a long time. L.T. McCook was a B-25 pilot in the Burma Theater. He was listed as missing in action for 82 years.
82 years. His family must have waited for generations for news.
Exactly. His remains were finally recovered and returned to Georgetown, Texas. Representative Carter's statement is about welcoming him home. It just reminds us that the accounting for these wars continues decades after the guns go silent.
The government never stopped looking.
Never stopped. Finally, in the extensions of remarks, we have a tribute to the labor movement. Representative William R. Keating of Massachusetts honored Cynthia Ann Rodriguez.
Cynthia was a garment worker who didn't just work the line, she fought for the line. She became a union organizer for Unite here in New England.
This is the gritty, unglamorous side of labor, right?
Absolutely. Representative Keating highlighted that she managed agreements for 1,500 members. It's a nod to the on-the-ground work of labor organizing. It's not about press conferences. It's about contracts and wages and working conditions.
These stories, the drone, the POW, the hardware store, the pilot, the union organizer, they really paint a picture of America that you just don't get by looking at the bill numbers.
Absolutely. It grounds the Congressional Record in humanity. It reminds you who all those laws are actually for.
But we have to zoom back out, because we have to talk about the context of this Silent Friday. We said the House met for 3 minutes and the Senate for 30 seconds. So why?
This is the why it matters part. The contrast here is so stark. If you look at the Daily Digest, which is the schedule included in the record, you see that Friday the 16th was the calm before a very specific, very intense political storm.
I looked at the schedule for the week of January 20th through the 23rd, and wow, it is heavy.
Heavy is putting it lightly. The committee schedule reveals some intense partisan clashes. For example, the Judiciary Committee has a hearing titled Oversight of the Office of Special Counsel Jack Smith.
Okay, that is going to be a headline grabber no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
And it doesn't stop there. The Oversight Committee has a markup on legislation recommending the House find William J. Clinton and Hillary R. Clinton in contempt of Congress.
Right, so we have special counsel oversight and we have contempt of Congress proceedings for a former president and secretary of state. I mean, that is high-octane political theater.
And on the policy side, the Ways and Means Committee has a hearing simply titled Hearing with Health Insurance CEOs.
That sounds like a fun afternoon for those CEOs.
I'm sure. But the takeaway here is crucial for you, the listener. The silence of Friday the 16th wasn't because nothing was happening. It was the administrative prep for a major week of confrontation.
They were clearing the decks.
Exactly. The record shows the clerks and the staff getting the paperwork out of the way, getting routine filings done, so the big political battles could take center stage the following week.
It proves that a short day in Congress often precedes a heavy news cycle. The quiet isn't a vacation, it's the deep breath before the plunge.
That's the perfect way to frame it.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on the mechanics of the day. Because looking at the transcript, Speaker Mike Johnson wasn't the one banging the gavel for that 3-minute session.
No, he wasn't. And this leads us to a fascinating procedural moment. The appointment of the Speaker pro tempore.
It sounds very formal.
It is. The House can't function without a presiding officer. But the Speaker can't be there every single day, especially for, a pro forma session on a Friday where no votes are happening.
So what do they do? Draw straws?
Not exactly.
Right.
The record shows a letter was read from Speaker Johnson. He appointed Representative Nicholas J. Begich III to act as Speaker pro tempore for the day.
So for those 3 minutes, Representative Begich was the one holding the authority of the chair.
He was the designated driver of the House for the afternoon.
And then, almost as soon as he sat down, they adjourned. Called to order at 3 p.m., adjourned at 3:03 p.m. It just begs a question. Why bother meeting at all if you're just going to leave?
It's the Constitution. Neither chamber can adjourn for more than 3 days without the other's consent. So even if everyone wants to go home for a long weekend, someone has to show up.
Someone has to unlock the door, say, "We are here," bang the gavel, and lock up.
Right. It satisfies the legal requirement so the government remains open. If they didn't do it, they'd be in violation of the Constitution.
It's like clocking in just so you don't get fired.
Basically, it keeps the legislative lights on, legally speaking.
So let's recap what we found in this empty day.
January 16th was a day of really procedural maintenance and written tributes, but it served as a bridge. It bridged the gap between routine filings, like those housing and AI resolutions, and a week of high-stakes oversight hearings.
It was a day where the drone delivery history of Appalachia shared the same page as anxiety about a government shutdown.
A perfect example of the breadth of the Congressional Record.
Now, if any of these stories sparked your interest, and I hope they did, maybe you want to read the full history of the Health Wagon drone delivery or the full tribute to Captain Camacho's escape, you can do that.
Please do. Go to congress.gov. Look up the Congressional Record for January 16th, 2026. You can read the full text of Representative Griffith's remarks or Representative Gonzalez's tribute. It's all public record.
And it is surprisingly readable.
It is worth the click. That does it for this deep dive into Congress in context.
It's been a pleasure.
Here's a final thought to chew on before we go. We saw a bill about AI in housing and a tribute to drone delivery in healthcare. Both were treated as, standard business. It makes you wonder, 10 years from now, what technologies will be so commonplace that Congress will be passing routine resolutions about them without even blinking an eye?
Something to think about.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next Deep Dive.